The January monthly update is today, guys. It's already too late because the patch is happening right as I'm making this video. Sorry I didn't make this sooner. I actually missed the news last night for once. But I'm going to go through all the patch with you and stuff, and here's what's going on. So downtime was today at 7 a.m., which is, I don't know. It'll be done right around the time I'm done posting this. It's down for 3 hours. So yeah, again, it'll be up when I'm done posting this. They have the full release notes over here. And it says, as a reminder, any unopened presents, unused event tokens you collect during the Winter Convergence Festival will disappear at the end of the event. And sorry I did not warn you ahead of time if you did got screwed because of that. So, expeditions, mutators, umbral shards, and more. Oh, they added mutators. Systems intended to rotate through a unique combination of mutators each week with 10 difficulty levels. Okay, so here's something important to know. Please be advised that recommended gear score levels for a mutated expedition is important as it directly factors into enemy scaling and by consequences your chances of success. So please note this combat scaling is individual per player and separate from the base difficulty increases in health and damage. So basically the way they did it is, oh God, it's kind of, it feels like a troll way to do it. So if your gear score is 600, then my assumption is that if your gear score is 600 and you go to Mutator 10, they're going to hit you like unbelievably harder than 625, not because the difference in stats, but just because it's like they designed it so it's like, oh, you have 600 gear score, so therefore you're just going to get dumped on. Like, I don't know. Anyway, so there's also something else that we'll get to in a minute that's pretty damn important that should be mentioned about how they made it so 625 gear score is going to be completely asinine in PvP, potentially, and I'll have to do testing on it in the future, and hopefully have time to make a video about that at some point. Once somebody finally gets 625 on my server, I'll test it and show you guys how ridiculous it is, if it is ridiculous. But let's take a look at some of this. So, players require a codex for opening the mutated version expedition. You complete a normal one, and then it gives you the codex so you can get into the mutator one, and it gives you one free mutating tuning orb the first time, and then you, what is it? Yeah, you don't get additional ones. It's a one-time thing. So you go up expeditions, and you go up there, use a mutator orb, and get in. And then once you get a high enough score, you can get to the next one. And mutator orbs are universals. You can craft one per week and buy one per week from the faction shop. There's like scoring and advancement in each one. So like every time you respawn, you get less points. Every time you get wiped, you get less points. Making sure you kill a certain, like all the named enemies gives you a certain number of points. Getting a certain number of AI kills, time and stuff like that. That's how you get scoring on that. There's different effects. I've had a whole video on this before, so I'm not going in crazy detail, just summarizing. So they either have fire or void damage depending on the week. Promotions, AI healing reduction and cast damaging beams around themselves and all these different effects and stuff. Basically makes it harder. So that's, we've heard a lot about the expeditions, so we don't really need to go into insane detail on them over and over and over again every single video I do, if you're familiar with my channel at least. Okay, endgame update part 2, umbral shards. So the reason we do them is to get umbral shards in order to get gear score 625. You can get umbral shards from 3 different things. So there's from the expedition mutators. There's also from opening gypsum casts. Once the expertise of that type has reached 600 expertise. So like if you already have 600 expertise and you still get gypsum, now gypsum will turn into umbral shards when you open the gypsum casts, I guess. Or no, it'll give you the item, and getting a 600 gear score item will give you a gypsum cast. And then also crafting 600 gear score items will give you 600, or will give you umbral shards. Did I say anything wrong in there? I don't know. Sorry, it's first thing in the morning. Okay. And then expertise system update. So here's where they talk about the gear score nerf, I think. Yeah. Okay. So first off, raise 59600 gypsum cast. Expertise increase from 600 to 625 via umbral system. And then expertise gear scaling. Any item that is purchased from the trading post or acquired through player-to-player trading, basically, after the January patch will have its effective gear score scaled down to the midpoint of players' expertise and the item's gear score if their expertise is lower than the item's gear score. So if you have 500 expertise and you go to the trading post and you buy a 600 gear score item, it will basically be a 550 gear score item until you get your expertise up to 600. It's always going to be in the midpoint between your expertise and the actual gear score of the item. So catching up to endgame players just gets harder every single day, basically, in this game. Although you can circumvent it with crafting. So you can instead craft your own gear. So if you're a new player, the best thing you can do to catch up if you don't want to do the expertise system is get armoring and weaponsmithing to 600, or 200, I mean. And then get the, the gear, the crafting gear, and the trophy. Well, you don't need the trophy. You need the crafting gear. And then, you can potentially get 600 stuff. And then it'll actually be 600. So whenever you craft 600 or whatever, 600 will trigger an expertise bump. This will be another great way for crafters to expertise 600. So yeah, so they changed this thing where if you craft and you happen to get a 600 legendary, that'll also increase your expertise. So crafters can get a little bit more expertise bump than they already were by. You weren't getting anything from crafting. It was just the emerald gypsum once a day. So there's just some quality of life stuff in here, like being notified about expertise bumps and topaz attunement potions being able to be crafted at the Arcana station now, and fixing the topaz gypsum so it actually drops correctly from enemies, and then addressed an issue for that last bit of expertise not going as fast as it was supposed to. And then the important thing here, players can now basically you can make as many gypsum orbs as you want per day depending on how many you have, but it's just the casts that are limited to once per day. So that's a nice quality. So if you just are lazy and just want to collect orbs but spend them later, you can do that, but you still can only make one of each cast per day. So if you want to get, like, just say life staff up as fast as possible, you are going to have to go over there and make one once a day. So world experience, so they changed some things. The drop rates of named enemies and expeditions have significantly increased. Tier 5 gears and add dynasty shipyards. Just at certain enemy counts. Expedition tuning orbs. Oh, this is important here. All tuning orbs can now be purchased from the faction shop. The lower level ones can be bought once a day, and then the higher level ones can be purchased once a week just from the faction shop. So that's nice. Another huge thing here is all the stuff to craft tuning orbs is tradable now. The blight seeds, which you get from Genesis, the chisels, which you buy from the faction shop, and then the corrupted lodestones, crystals, fragment shards, and stuff that you can get from corrupted portals can all be traded, which will make life a lot easier for people trying to make the tuning orbs. Also, to make it easier for people, the Asmodeum chisel costs less coins now, and then the Eternal Elemental Hearts now only cost 10 of each mote. And then the Undying Heart only costs 2 quintessence instead of 6. And then all the stuff that uses the corrupted lodestones and stuff like that, and even the obsidian voidstone, all cost less than before. And then mutated tuning orbs are cheaper than they had originally envisioned. Only 5 gemstone dust instead of 10, 1 chisel instead of 2, 5 runestones instead of 10. Also, fast travel costs are reduced. Main thing is they've reduced the distance factor in the amount of Azoth required for each trip, and the faction control point bonus associated with fast travel now reduces the distance factor. So if you're going to a faction control place, it should be 0 is what I think they're saying. And they added some new fast travel shrines right by the dungeons, and then fixing elite open worlds or elite strongholds not consistently applying the appropriate affliction to players that enter visually afflicted areas. They revised chest placements of several elite chests in Siren's Stand to be closer to their associated named enemy. Probably trying to make them harder to cheese them, since apparently they don't like that. And then there are notable fixes, which, in my opinion, literally none of these are notable. I don't think I've read through all of them. I didn't see any that were notable, other than maybe decrease some load times is nice. But everything else in here is kind of just not notable at all, so I'm not going to read them. You can read them yourself if you want. I'm going to link this in the description of the video, by the way. So if you want to go through this again, you can. Increased hit volumes for bipedal bears, reduced amount of health skeletons. They nerfed a bunch of enemies as far as their annoyance, especially tendrils. Tendrils don't hard stagger and hard stun type of stuff as often with some of those abilities, or at all, and do, I think, less damage. They all do less damage, so that's good. The tendrils were honestly the strongest enemy in the entire game in a way. It was kind of crazy. AI got some tweaks. So another important thing is mutator perks have been added, so you get these from doing the mutators. And it gives you, if I remember this right, you get an item, then you can craft with it. It was like, I can't remember if it was like a timeless shard equivalent, if it was like a crafting mod. I don't remember which way it worked, but either way, you end result is you'll be able to get these things on weapons and stuff. So attacks deal additional 15% weapon damage as fire, ice, nature, or void with a 2-second cooldown. That's a perk you can get on a weapon now. And then armor perks after being hit with fire damage or any other elemental for these 4 gain 4% absorption for that element for 5 seconds. I don't know if 4% is going to scale and that's the highest percent or lowest percent. I don't know how high or low it goes. And then each piece of armor with this perk increase the potency of this effect, or just always 4%. Might just always be 4%. I don't know. PvP damage formula update. Now this is the thing I talked about in the beginning, like earlier in the video, and I honestly am not sure that I'm a fan of this. I actually am not a fan of this. So if you buy the game today and you think I want to get to level 60 and I want to do wars sound cool, yeah, good luck with that. You're never getting an award. It's going to take you so long, especially if you're a casual player. If you have a job and you can only play like 2 to 3 hours a day on average, it's going to be summer before anybody slots you for a war after this update goes through, because they adjusted the way that armor mitigation is calculated to use enemies' gear score values instead of your average gear score. So what does that mean? Okay, so how much damage you mitigate, which, so like, you know, when you have armor, it makes you take less damage, right? Well, the way that's calculated is going to change. So now how much damage you take is not based off your enemy's weapon. It's based off of your enemy's armor and weapon. So what that means, is if a guy has 625, he's going to be chunking you way harder than a guy who's 600 because of the change. Now, I don't know how it's going to scale exactly, so I'll have to find out once people get to 625. I should have tested on PTR, man. I didn't even think about that. But main thing is, when people are slotting for wars, they're gonna ask now, what's your gear score, bro? Is it 625 yet? I'm only slotting 625, guys. Like literally in 1 month, that is how wars are gonna be. They're gonna be trying to find out if you have 625 because they're trying to min-max their war, right? And if you're a casual player and you come in you 500, you don't even have armor anymore. Like, I don't know how bad it's gonna be. I don't know if it's gonna scale that bad. We'll find out eventually. I'll make a video on it someday. But bottom line is, you're not getting into wars ever again. And even Outpost Rush is going to be less fun depending on how this scales, because it doesn't matter. Your gear does not matter basically at all. It just matters what the gear score of it is compared to the gear score of the other guy, instead of just a flat value or whatever. I don't know. It makes me think of like WoW when they'd make it on World of Warcraft, when they'd make it so it was like, hey, this guy's 10 levels above you. You know, we could make it so that you still have a chance fighting him, but just to make it so the high-level guy feels good about himself, let's just make it so he evades, blocks, and dodges and parries 100% of all your attacks. You know, wow, what a dumb system, right? That way low-level players can never do anything until they've put in the time to actually play the game, which unfortunate for casual players. Also, they increase the damage of low-level players due to high-level players and reduce the damage high-level players due to low-level players to make it so it's a little bit less obnoxious when they just kill you in PvP out in the open world. You're level 30. So. Outpost Rush got changes. Mainly the Brute got nerfed. It costs more Azoth now. Summoning Stones drop on death. Be careful about that. That when you see them on the ground, they have rarity, so you can tell what they are. Wolves no longer summon minions, so it's harder to get Azoth. And then Azoth in Outpost Rush. Outpost Rush gatherers have no weight now. Baroness slows instead of staggers. Water, you can't gather water in there. Added 2 additional gates on the sides of each team spawn so they can get out more places. They can't get spawn camped as bad. Increase the cooldown on the Brute's corrupted ball, so he's not just constantly chucking it at you, and he's less likely to use it when you're inside the fort. So all this was about the Brute. Nothing about balancing teams or fixing any of the serious issues. We're just fixing the Brute is all that is, basically. And then we got notable fixes. Again, a second notable fixes. And most of these notable fixes are not really that notable, but there are a few notable ones, and there may be something here that doesn't sound notable, but it actually is, because I'm not some of these classes, and they don't sound that crazy, but I don't know, maybe they are. So you can pause and read it for yourself, or you can just go to the page and read it for yourself if anything crazy stands out to you. But the main one for me is Mending Protection wasn't functioning properly to fix the issue that these changes were made. Mending Protection... updated Mending Protection be able to be reapplied by any Orb of Protection heal, even the recovery from Protector's Blessing. To compensate for that duration has been shorted, and the effect of it has been reduced. Previously it was 5 to 40% for 5 seconds. That was only applied as the ability was initially used. Now it's 5 to 25% for 3 seconds. That duration can be refreshed with each tick of recovery and additional applications of Orb of Protection. So it's a perk that I was actually thinking about using, maybe, where when you use Orb of Protection, it increases how much you heal by 40% at max level, but it was not reapplying. Now it's 25% that got nerfed, but now it reapplies indefinitely if it keeps proccing. And then Reap now does damage when you have these 2 random perks unlocked at the same time, which was nice. That was one of the I remember I tried to play Paladin, and if you had Reap but you had these 2 other perks, it just did no damage for whatever reason. And then Ancient Bear Paw can now be used in crafting, and that is pretty much it. Everything else did not seem very notable to me. I mean, there were things that are probably more notable to players who were affected by these things, but there was no like game-changing, gigantic things, to the best of my knowledge. All right, economy progression, loot, housing tax going to get reduced. It's getting set back to normal, but it's also getting reduced. So reverted the make good 90% housing tax reduction that people were using to duplicate taxes for companies, and that's why everyone had the tax rate set to extreme. And then updated housing tax minimum band at 2.5%, down from 5%. So the minimum amount they can tax is even lower, and the maximum amount they can tax is lower. And then updated the default housing tax to 5%, down from 10%. I don't know. They said something about a happy medium, but I think it's still up to the players. I don't think they did reduce the maximum, but we'll see. Aptitude chests now drop less. Azoth is just a little bit less on each one. The tier 1s from gathering don't even drop any. Everything got like reduced instead of 3 to 5, it's 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 2 to 3, 2 to 3, 0 to 1, that type of thing. And then, oh yeah, this was another one that got fixed now on live. So Surgeon Pit Day, Bane's, Mortician previously did not drop battle trophy materials. This has been fixed. It actually was already fixed. This was in the patch last week, I think, or something, or 2 weeks ago. But it's still in these patch notes. Okay, then. And we got crafting. There's nothing actually notable here other than fixed an issue prevented the use of onyx when crafting earrings using timeless shards. The black and manja with corn succotash recipe that requires lava barb, they changed the title. It still uses a lava barb. And energizing light rations, energizing travel rations better represent they changed the image. Oh my god, I'm so excited. Okay, gear and loot. So they're gonna add juniper berries to simulate those present lockboxes we were getting. You can find juniper berries by killing enemies. You can find up to 3 a day. They have 50 to 150 coins, so on average 100 coins. That's 300 coins per day on average to every single player in the entire game if they just go out of town and kill a few monsters every day. So that's going to generate millions of coins a day on high pop servers. And then fixed an issue, alligators. The raw horde alligators are dropping an excessive amount of rawhide. I'm going to look into that. I was going to make a rawhide route somewhere. I wonder if that's the one I was thinking about. I'll have to look into that. And then fixing certain signature gears for named enemies for increasing expertise. Lazarus bow, didn't have the right stats, now it does. But the biggest thing here is fixed an issue preventing players from socking gems into old ring, old earring, and old amulet. That's the big takeaway on that one. Also, sped up leveling for the mid-game, levels 23 to 45 by 20% because mid-game sucks. Late game takes even longer, though. I remember getting, 50 to 60 was like, man, I did so many job boards. It was insane. So materials, they literally just already said that above. You can trade them once a week, blah, blah, blah. Reduce the cost, durability damage on death. And this is a big one. Fixed an issue causing players to lose progress when switching back to a faction they'd previously been a part of. Now when players switch back to a faction, they will retain their faction rank reputation as well as the balance of their faction tokens. Unfortunately, we cannot restore players to their previous state for players who switch back to a faction they are a part of prior to this update. Okay, but after this update, if you swap faction and 60 days later swap back, you'll keep it. Also, I don't know if it's in here, but they fixed the bug apparently where that would make it so you can't gain reputation anymore. I think that's probably the fix. That's probably what fixed it, doing that. And then this sucks. Remove the ability to give gold to individuals outside of player-to-player trading system. That blows. I can't just gift people things anymore, and I hate that one. That's going to suck. And then loading screen. Players must now play the game for a minimum of 2 hours and have owned the game for a minimum of 72 hours before they can use chat. Okay. Some different things with store items, nothing important. Fixed an issue with sort time for the trading post, and inventory should no longer scroll back up to the top after closing the sell window, which makes it a lot easier to sell multiple items all at once in the trading post without having to scroll down every time. Really helps when you have like 500 items in your storage. And then finally, we have a third notable fixes, and none of them are really notable except maybe these last ones. Server crash, territories are abandoned. Fixed a discrepancy between server client system clock timing and war declaration screen. Maybe that'll be better now. And fixed an issue where the map was reporting that there was an upcoming invasion when there's actually an upcoming war. So that's pretty much everything. Yeah, I tried to cover the most important parts. I didn't want to read every, trying to save you some time so you don't have to read every single freaking word of the entire thing, so you know what's going on with this one. Yeah, so that is the January update. Mutators, all this stuff coming in right now. So when this patch is actually live, which should be by the time this is actually uploaded and published, the patch is already live and you can go ahead and log back in. Yeah, that's the situation. That's what's going on with January update. I don't know. I have mixed feelings on some of it. I don't like the gear score change. Not I don't like 625. I just don't like the scaling change. I think it's kind of stupid. Other than that, though, expeditions will be a fun thing to do, especially for people who really like dungeons and PvE stuff. So this update is a big win for PvE players, but also for casual players, this update is a gigantic loss. If you're a casual player trying to catch up, it's just gonna blow really bad. But any hardcore player and hardcore PvE players are gonna be very thrilled about this patch. But that's what's coming in the January update. That's what just came out. And yeah, now you know the situation. Now you know what's going on with this. What's going to be different once this patch is live on New World.